Arwa Alhamad is a cybersecurity head at Sanabil Investments. She has over 14 years of experience in the field of cybersecurity, specializing in governance, risk, and compliance. Her experience spans across local and global organizations in various industries. In addition to that, she's actively a cybersecurity advocate, speaker, and board member of several nonprofit organizations. She received her master's degree in cybersecurity computing from the Royal Melbourne Institute in Technology in Australia. She holds several professional certifications that I don't even want to go over, there's so many. So please get your hands together and give a warm welcome for Arwa Alhamad.
So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
So, I know this is the last session of the day, and everyone's tired, and maybe some of you are want to go to lunch, and you're looking forward to that. But believe me, staying here is the right decision, because the thought that I will be speaking about today, I believe, is going to be the future. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about today is a thought that's going to be the future. So if you are a service provider, you can turn this into a business opportunity. If you are a company or that's looking for investments, then you can use this framework to adopt. And if you are an investor, then you can adopt this as well. So at the end, I would say the end goal is you're going to be creating value. And my finance professor said that creating value is the end goal for any business and the answer to any question you don't know in the exam. So creating value is the thing that we're looking at. So about me, I'm just going to give a brief. My name is Arwa Alhamad. I work as a cybersecurity head. I'm a professional in the field, 14 plus years experience in public and private sectors. I worked in international and national organizations, and also I sit on some advisory board for nonprofit organizations. So I've, as I said, done my master's degree in computer science and pursuing my executive MBA. That's why I talk about my finance professor. So wish me luck in that. Okay, so I'm also a daughter, wife, and mother of two angels that you can see in the screen. So this is enough about me. Let's jump to the thought that everyone is waiting for. So as we know, cybersecurity is a global risk. And it's growing as a global risk more and more. The World Economic Forum, in their report, they have, in 2019, 2020, for the past 5 years, cybersecurity has been on the top. Also, if we look at the investment sector, private equity, the assets under management in the private equity grew this year to 6.3 trillion. Can you imagine? And this number is 2/3 of the private market. The private sector, as per the Homeland Security report, owns 85% of the critical national infrastructure. These are just some statistics. I'll put it all together. And there was a report also saying that there's 65% of the world's GDP is predicted to be digitized this year. So putting it all together, we see that cybersecurity is a big threat to the future. We're talking about digitization, the panel that they were talking before, and the other sessions that were really amazing. So it's a big threat, and I believe investors have a big role in playing in this. You would ask me how. So how is, let's look at the investment overall. So any business starts with someone with an idea, has an idea, right? And they look for someone that has money or an investor to seed it. So once it's seeded, it becomes a startup. And from a startup, it needs to be showered more. It becomes growth or survival, moves to rapid growth or expansion until it becomes mature, and then God knows what happens next. So if we look at this slide, in the eyes of an attacker, what do you think they would see? The pile of money the investor is sitting on, right? And they would keep on following it wherever it goes. If it goes to the startup, if it goes to this acquisition, the attackers have an eye on it. So that's why we see that any company that is part of private equity has become a lucrative target for attackers. And we can see lots of articles, lots of statistics that prove this more and more. So we believe that investors, they sit on the front lines of any new innovation. You can see they are the ones that seed it. Or they are also part of the organizations when they mature and become mature or growth or so on. So they have a big role to play with it. They are the ones that are providing the capital, the necessary capital, in order to grow the idea from an idea to reality. So what can these investors do? So we know that a breach can seriously impact a company valuation. But let me make this a bit interactive. So show me a raise of hands. How many people think that a company valuation, let's say the share price, would go down by 1% due to a cybersecurity breach? Okay, keep your hands up if you think 2%. What about 3%? 4? 5? No hands going down. 6? 7%. Okay, let me stop here. I see only, I think, 3 or 4 hands. So statistics actually show that, yes, it could go up to 7%. And I'll give you some examples. When FedEx acquired TNT, they attracted a cyber attack that caused a loss by 300 million. Marriott, when they merged with Starwood, they attracted an attack that caused the share price to go down 5.6%. Yahoo was in negotiations for an acquisition. And during this, they agreed on a price. However, there was a breach that was discovered during the negotiation that happened in the past. What happened? The value of the acquisition went down by 350 million, which is up to 7% of the valuation of the company, Yahoo. So what we see here is that company valuation gets affected big time by cybersecurity breaches. So what is the investor's role in this? The investors are realizing the importance of cybersecurity in order to get reliable returns and in order to have better protection on the intellectual property or the portfolio companies that they have. So some statistics, there was a great survey that was done by Forescout. And this survey was asking decision makers for any mergers and acquisitions about their opinion on due diligence or integrating cybersecurity in the investment. So 65% of decision makers said that cybersecurity is a risk to acquisitions and highest post-acquisition. Because they look at it, if you acquire a company and, for example, you're going to merge or you're going to integrate, there are technical aspects that you need to look at. You need to have an integration plan. That's why it's highest post-acquisition. But today, I will challenge this and say that it is highest also post-acquisition because it impacts the decision-making. 73% of the company of decision makers said that a company with an undisclosed data breach is an immediate deal breaker. So if they have been breached and I'm acquiring this company or I'm investing in it and they didn't disclose it, it's an immediate deal breaker. So they care about cybersecurity. 53% said that a cybersecurity issue has put a deal into jeopardy, a deal of merger, acquisition, or any kind of investment. And also 65% said that their companies experienced regrets in a merger and acquisition deal after the deal has done due to a cybersecurity issue that was there that they didn't detect during the evaluation or the process of the investment. So The last statistic is something that brings me, let's say it's optimistic. 81% agree that they are currently putting more focus on the target cybersecurity posture more than the past. However, I believe the challenge for them is, do they have a framework that they can adopt? Is it easy for them? We understand the investment industry is not, I would, in my opinion, it's not very mature in cybersecurity yet. It's still, there's no security professionals. I've talked to some of my colleagues and they say they are nerdy people. They don't want to go to investment companies or they don't want to go to non-technical companies. So we need more people in this industry because they are the front lines and they can make sure that unsecured technology is not brought into the market. So we've seen in the lens of the investors, the lens of a target company and how it could be impacted, and now for regulations and international best standards. So the Securities and Exchange Committee, it grabbed their attention, the investment industry, and they came up with proposed rules for listed companies or for registered investor advisors and funds. So these rules are requiring disclosure on the experience that the board has on cybersecurity. They are requiring disclosure of incidents that happened, disclosure on how these companies are managing the cybersecurity risks. So there is attention, but not yet. There's no framework. If you look at the regulations and the international best standards for the investment, you can see in different countries, we found that there's different regulations. Many of us as cybersecurity experts are not really familiar with something called ILPA or GPEN, which is the valuation. However, these standards know us as cybersecurity. They have added some requirements related to cyber and how you measure valuation and how you manage the company and the risks and how you do evaluate other companies. However, still, I believe there's a long way to go. We still have more, the investors are business people, they need simpler language, they need to understand exactly what kind of controls could be used. So what we did is, let me take you a step back and give you a 101 course in investment. So what is the process in investment? You start by sourcing. Sourcing means you have your partners and you ask them for deals or deals that are happening. They would come to you and give you some deals. Screening, it's the stage where you put some filters and you say, for example, I only want to invest in biotech companies, or I only want to invest in companies that have impact, and they call them impact investments or responsible if it's related to ESG. Then you go to due diligence. So this is after the company is past the screening. You go to you take approval from the Management Investment Committee, who are the layer above, I think. Okay, yeah, sorry. So the Management Investment Committee, and then they give the approval for further due diligence, and this is where you do due diligence. You go and ask the company either interviews, checklists, required documents, and then you do the due diligence to understand the current status. Final approval and closure, this is where you do the contract and you close the deal. Then monitoring is you monitor your investment portfolio, and then at the end you divest or exit the investment after you created the value that we talked about in the beginning, and then you make money at the end. So the question is, we looked at this in cybersecurity point of view, and we found that from due diligence to monitoring, which is post-acquisition to pre-acquisition to post-acquisition, there is the highest risk. And because it impacts the investment decision. However, the first two phases is mostly affecting the investment process. And the last stage, the exit, this is where you reap the investment that you have done. So if you invested well in cybersecurity, you're going to find a better valuation. If you invested less, you're going to get a lower valuation. So this is the most important slide, I would say, for today. And if I would leave you with one thing, I would leave you with this slide after it's complete, not now. So don't take a picture of it now. So I would say that after studying this, we thought that every investment company has a management investment committee who have expertise and make decisions. So having a cybersecurity expertise in this investment committee as a member or as a hired third party that comes in and gives you your experience, gives them their experience in making decisions is very, very important. And we can see, I'll talk about this more, and each control has a slide for it. So the other thing is screening phase. We're going to talk about this more. You put a cybersecurity risk tolerance. So you screen against other risks. You screen about the type of company. You screen about the value of the company. You screen about, you have different filters. You also have to include cybersecurity. In the due diligence, you need to do due diligence for cybersecurity. I have a slide on each one of these controls. Cybersecurity in the final closure. You need to have your investment terms. You have to have incentive structure for your investment company, portfolio company. Monitoring the cybersecurity integration after. Are you going to do a merger? Are you going to only acquire it? Are you going to offer services, like example, integrate with some systems? Cybersecurity review and collaboration. After you close the deal, you need to review. Are they doing better? Are they going right on the right track in the roadmap, and so on? And then the investment, I don't believe there's any controls because it's just seeing the results of what you have done from the beginning. So if we start by MIC, what is an MIC? Many of us, we're not coming from an investment background, right? So what does the MIC do? The Management Investment Committee reviews the investment strategies, the guidelines. They also approve implementation of all investments. They review the investment performance, how well the performance is doing. They review the investment risks and risk tolerance, because there's a risk tolerance in every investment portfolio as a whole. And they make recommendations to the board or the board investment committee, whatever you call it in your organization. So this approach of having cybersecurity expertise on a board level is not new. SEC, the Securities and Exchange Committees, has requested to do that for all boards of any listed company. They want to have more cybersecurity expertise in order to guide the management, guide the conversation, understand what the CISO is saying when they show you the reports. So having this expertise is important also in the investment committee. So having this person that looks at the cybersecurity risk and says, no, we shouldn't do this deal because it may end badly, for example. So, sorry for that. So the results are mostly in the committee charter. The committee charter is where you have a management investment committee and you put the committee members and what is required, their roles and responsibilities. The second one is the risk tolerance. This is in the screening phase. So what we do in the screening phase, as I said, screening is filtering. It's a set of filters. You put it based on investors' preference, values, ethics, whatever you want, or certain risk appetite that you have. This is set before the investment. And in the screening, you look at these risk tolerance and say, is this deal going to affect my risk? Is it within my risk tolerance or not? And based on that, you make a decision. You say, okay, what kind of risk tolerance should I have as a cybersecurity? Examples of it, it could be a portfolio exposure to current and future threats. You need to think about that. Is this, for example, company very sensitive? Is it targeted? Are they complying with, for example, regulatory requirements? Because maybe a regulatory requirement, let's say, for example, GDPR, 40 million as a fine. Can we tolerate that as an investment portfolio, part of our portfolio? So all these questions need to be put there and screened against it. So also, this risk, the cybersecurity tolerance, needs to be evaluated. It needs to be quantified all the time, because you don't set it in the beginning and you screen one by one. You're talking about the cyber risk tolerance for the whole portfolio. You might take risk in one company, but not take risk in another company. So you need to quantify it overall. Results go into the screening memo. The cybersecurity due diligence, in the due diligence phase, and this is a really important phase, I would say. I think most companies are actually doing due diligence, but in a not let's say, an inconsistent way. So the due diligence, I have found an amazing framework that was published in the World Economic Forum report that they had, and they gave a guide for investors on how to do due diligence. So they looked at two parts. First of all, the organization security. So if I'm looking at the target company, is the company putting best practices for their organization? And the second part is for their product or service. Are they offering a service or product that is digitized or related to digital? And based on that, you would look on these two parts. It would look at all the dimensions of people, process, and technology, and they would use different tools such as document reviews, interviews with the target company, or external verification. And of course, the good thing about this framework is that it doesn't forget the past incidents. So they look at the past incidents. How did this target company handle it? It shows a lot about their resilience and the way that they handle incidents. But what is, all these results go to an investment memo, but what is the main challenge that investment companies or any investor is facing in doing this due diligence? There's three things: time, resource, scope. How do you balance between this all? So on one hand, the investor needs to dedicate resources. They need to dedicate budget for doing the due diligence, right? And at the same time, they have to look at, they are always under time pressure in taking an opportunity. So they would tell you, I have only 2 weeks to decide. But as a due diligence cybersecurity, I need 1 month to do this technical. So you need to balance between the scope and to what detail am I going to put all these controls, and to which detail am I going to do the due diligence. And based on that, you agree on it with the management investment committee. So if we look at the final approval and closure phase, this is where, khalas, you understand from the due diligence what are the risks that are there, what are the gaps, and you agree with the target company what they are required to do. Now we need to document it, define it, and put it in a document and sign it. So what do we put there? One of the good things to do is you want this private equity, sometimes they put management or they acquire a company and require certain mandates from them. One of the mandates need to be also thinking about cybersecurity. So how do we incentivize people? We hear about incentivizing by giving shares to some employees. That would give them sense of that. The same thing, why not tie the executive compensation with a cybersecurity benchmark? For example, any benchmark that we want and how well they are performing against that. That's incentivizing cybersecurity, and that's putting an incentive structure. We can de-incentivize insecurity, meaning that we ask for regular audits. So then we know that the company will do what they need to do because an audit is coming. So that's de-incentivizing. What do we put in these mandates? We put the cybersecurity requirements that we have. We put what are the risks that we expect you as a target company that we invested in to close or mitigate, and what we are going to help you in an investment, giving you an investment in order to close these risks. And finally, also, we should put contingency and clawback clauses. Maybe the incident that we talked about, Yahoo, maybe it wasn't discovered due in the negotiation phase. So this 350 million, who's going to handle that? We could put clawback clauses. If an incident that happened before the acquisition, then we can settle this in a certain manner. And this is in the clawback clauses. So we add this all in the investment, mandates, and term sheets. That's the end result of this. The question that always comes is, how much cybersecurity should I go? Investment, when I work in an investment company, I talk to investors, they're like, this is not important. Why would you want to do that? There's no risk here. The question is actually how and in which depth. Should we be an obstacle because they have a time constraint for a certain deal? Should we be an obstacle and tell them, no, we cannot go with it until we do the due diligence? So we thought of a framework. The framework looks at two things. First of all, the level of integration. The level of integration means, are we going to integrate with this company after we acquire it or invest in it? The second part is, as an investor, what is my motives? Is it a financial or is it strategic? So it varies. If you see the graph on the top, so you could be an angel investor. Mostly angel investors looking for financial returns. Or you can be early stage VCs. And then it goes up to merger and acquisition where you look strategically and you're looking for synergies and so on. So what I'm saying is also the efforts or the integration that you will be putting into with this portfolio company could vary based on the sensitivity, the industry, the regulatory. So you need to put all this together and see into which level of integration should we go. This is put into integration, strategy, and plans. And finally, in the monitoring phase. So how do we monitor? We already closed the deal. We told them these are our requirements. How are we going to monitor? So there's many ways. Many of the private equity or any investors, they sit on the board of directors of these companies, or the subcommittees of it. There's audit, risk, cybersecurity committees. So sitting on that and managing, requiring information on how well they're doing, that's one part of it. The other part, it could be the right to receive reports. You need to send me monthly reports, quarterly reports to see how well you're doing. Or I can hire a third party and tell them, go audit them and give us how well they are performing against what they are saying. So all these ways of monitoring your investment, and also the third-party monitoring could also help you know what is the valuation of this company. So when they come and they do the audit, they would tell you the value went up, or there's a serious cybersecurity concern here, the value is going down, as we saw on the slide of 1 to 7%, and maybe it would go higher in the future, we don't know. So this goes into regular reports that they send to us. Coming to the last slide, I believe this is a good start of a framework that investors could adopt. Companies that are looking for investment could also adopt to prepare themselves for better investors, for more mature investors. And providers can start using this framework and providing service for investment companies who are lacking some awareness. So we need to educate this investment sector and tell them you are in the front lines, you have a responsibility in making sure unsecured technology is not going to the market. The other challenge that we have is the industry also lacks a standard approach to evaluating the cybersecurity of a target portfolio or a company. And this is where we're doing this research, we're doing this study, we came up with this framework, but it needs to be detailed more. We need to implement and start seeing the result and documenting it. And finally, a due care standard tailored to investors need to guide their responsibility. So they need to know how they can change their behavior. We need to let them know what is their role and responsibility. Many investors, they don't know the role that they hold. They don't know how their role is very key for the secure future. So I hope maybe some of the audience here will be interested in this and continue the research or adopt it. And I'm happy to discuss this furthermore with anyone coming to you. So thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed this and you're ready for lunch now. Any questions? Oh, there's a question there in the back.
Hello?
Yes, hi. I can't hear you. Microphone, people? Great. I think microphones want
Hello.
you guys to have lunch.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you to MENA ISC for this opportunity to interact with you. And I think it was a fabulous session. the last 20 minutes. One of the conversations we tend to have with organizations, and especially the executives or the board members, is in terms of how to quantify cyber risks. And I think you briefly touched upon that aspect. I just wanted to check with you in terms of your expertise and experience as well. Do you think there is enough data out in the market, including benchmarking statistics, that can help us quantify cyber risks and also explain the return on security investment?
Okay, great question. Actually, this has been, I think, the talk of the last few conferences that, or the past few years. So we were lacking a cybersecurity resilience index. As we said, management don't understand the technical things. They just want to see a number. Tell me, are we mature or not? Are we 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 1 out of 5? So there's lots of questions. So there was some efforts that have been done by lots of companies, and one of them is there was just a paper published last 2 weeks about cybersecurity performance, or how you make sure your strategy is going on the right track. And it shows you a framework on how you can build a house customized for your organization, because every organization is different, even if you're in the same industry. And then you put a set of KPIs and how you weight them until you get to a maturity level, and how you engage the management in that. So once you start speaking the business language, and this is something we lack in cybersecurity professionals, this is where you can explain to them that this is what we mean by doing that. And one thing that I always start any board meeting with is, it's not the matter of if, it's the matter of when. So we're all gonna get attacked in our life, but are we ready or not? Are we going to minimize the impact or not? So you can look at this paper. It shows you how to do the performance and measure the performance and quantify it. There's the results that I brought about how it impacts the listed companies. There's a report doing that. It tells you how much the share price will go down in the first 6 months, in the first year, and then it goes up to, I think, 3 years, and then they say the cybersecurity effect diminishes in a certain point of time. So I hope I answered your question. Great, thank you. Any other questions? So there's a question there. Good. Hi.
I know my voice is clear. Okay. First, thank you for your sessions. I just want to ask you, as an investor, where can I find very clear information about the investment in cybersecurity, especially in Saudi Arabia and the regions? Because I think it's very difficult to find very statistic in that.
You mean statistics on the investors investing in cybersecurity?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so there are, I know, some accelerators, some things being done in cybersecurity, but I would, in my point of view, I'm new to investment industry, actually, not very keen to it, but I would say there's still missing information. So we're still looking for gathering such information and investing in cybersecurity companies, if I'm right what you're saying.
Yes.
So there are, but I believe in Saudi, I know that many of the investment companies have put cybersecurity on their top list in the screening. So when we talked about screening, they say if it's a cybersecurity company, it takes more points. So this is a fact that is known, but statistics, we don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So great, I'll leave you all for lunch. Thank you very much. Thank you.